Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the record. For members of the committee, for your record, I'm still Sara State Senator from Senate District 8, which includes Corvallis and Albany. And since it's the Education Committee and we are talking about innovative measures that improve high school graduation rates, I have to point out that the Albany School District just posted a 95% four-year on-time graduation rate, which is extraordinary. Corvallis is at nearly 90% four-year graduation rate. And during the time period that the fifth-year program was implemented in Corvallis and under the leadership of Superintendent Aaron Prince, we've seen remarkable growth in Corvallis, a double-digit growth in our high school graduation rate, particularly in the subgroups. From 2012, economically disadvantaged students, their four-year graduation rate was 45.7. 3 years later, it's 73.3. ELL students were at 32.4, are up to 46.7. Hispanic students have jumped in 3 years from 55.9 to 81.1. And special education students in 3 years have doubled from 31.5 to 64.2. And I would submit to you that there's something in the sauce in the Mid-Valley that we should be looking at across the state. So the reason that we are here today is to discuss Senate Bill 1537. Great. All the bill numbers are new, which is the Postgraduate Scholar Program. This grows out of the discussion we had last session about fifth-year programs. How much do they cost? Are they fair? Are they appropriate? And the questions that swirled around that were ones of equity. Is this something that could be accessible to anybody in whatever district they lived in around the state? Sustainability. If everybody participated, could we do that without swamping the state school fund? Federal money on the table. Were we leaving money on the table using state funds when the federal government could be picking up the tab for some of this? Were we encouraging students to get college credits in grades 9 through 12? Were we doing that in an aggressive enough way? And if all those questions were answered, is it ever appropriate to use state school fund for college tuition for a student that has met the requirements for a standard high school diploma? This bill attempts to answer all of those questions and is the result of a work group that drew people from all over the state to Albany for 4 or 5 work group meetings. People drove from as far away as Klamath Falls and Redmond to put together this plan. Basically, the way that the new program would work is this. We promise severe sideboards, and they are. The first thing is that a student cannot participate as a postgraduate scholar, and a postgraduate scholar is a student that has completed all of the requirements for a standard four-year diploma in 4 years. They cannot come back and be supported to attend community college if they are eligible for the Oregon Promise. They must apply for the Oregon Promise, and if they're eligible to go, they must use that pathway. If they are eligible, and this is in both the -1 and -2 amendments, if they are eligible for a Pell Grant, and they must apply and demonstrate what their award level was, if they are eligible for a Pell Grant that will pay for the cost of tuition at a community college for 1 year. We limit it to 1 year only. For districts to support a student who has completed a high school graduation requirement for a standard diploma, the majority of the students they're serving in the district have to not be those kids. So that means the majority of kids earning credit on a college campus have to be students in grades 9 through 12. So there we go to encouraging students to earn college credit before the 12th grade. Students who are earning or have earned a GED, a modified diploma, or an extended diploma, who districts continue to be responsible for and receive state school fund for, or students that are in an at-risk category. They have left an alternative high school education program. They've come out of the correction system. They were students that had dropped out. So that is where the majority of this focus is going to. The district must have a signed contract with the local community college that clearly lays out the responsibilities of both entities. The district has to commit some of its own resources to doing this. They have to demonstrate that they have enough FTE to provide a one-to-one face-to-face visit on their school district campus with each of these students at least twice a month. The students can only attend the community college that's in the service area, whose service area includes the high school from which they graduated, and the student must continue to live in the school district from which they graduated from high school. So we have really narrowed this down to a very small number of students. In addition, we scale back the reimbursement rate for these students. Right now, districts are getting getting a 1.0. The numbers we saw last year when we talked about this included a full weight plus special weights. They will be eligible for no special weights. This year they would get the full weight. Next year it would drop to 0.85. The third year it would drop to 0.75. The other benefit of doing this is we can finally quantify exactly how much does this cost and how many students are we serving. What we learned when we individually surveyed districts is that the numbers that we received last year that talked about the number of students returning for a fifth year weren't just these students. It included special education students that were still in transition programs. It included students that did not graduate from high school in 5 years. It included students that were enrolled in community college programs that were in grades 9 through 12. So this gives us a very precise mechanism to identify the cost. And then it tells us to come back in 2018, look at how much we've spent, and discuss what's the best way to do this. Is that state school fund rate too high? Should there be state school funds spent at all, or might there be another mechanism? So that answers all of the questions about why state school fund, and is it ever appropriate to use state school fund for these purposes? I would argue that it is always appropriate to use state school fund for the purpose of increasing a high school graduation rate. With these sideboards, what we are creating is a carrot to keep kids in school districts to graduate from high school that otherwise would leave. We are not talking about first-generation college attenders. We are talking about first-generation high school graduates. And I believe that use of state school fund for innovative programs that help kids that otherwise were falling through the cracks really does make a difference. We've got a superintendent here today to talk to you, a principal that runs a program, and a couple of kids. And just the last thing that I would say is that this is a tremendous compliment to the Oregon Promise program. It creates a safety net for those kids who truly would have no other way to go to community college, who want to go. We are talking about kids that have less than a 2.5 grade point average. And you can be a really smart kid and have a 2.0 grade point average. You can be a kid that was homeless, that was a foster kid, that was moving around, have a 1.8 grade point average, and that is a huge victory that you made it across your graduation stage. And they are not eligible for a Pell Grant to send them to school. These are the very kids who community college can transform their lives, break the cycle of poverty, and set them up to be economically self-sufficient and really start a good life for themselves and their families. So with that, I'm glad to answer any questions. Yes.
Senator. Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate the work that you and others did on this. I just want to make sure I'm clear in my mind who would still qualify for K through 12 money to use for college purposes. If it's not kids who would qualify for Pell Grant, and who's left out there?
Sure. So who is left would be just your general kids in grades 9 through 12, who I don't think that's the concern anyway. It would be students that are receiving a higher level of support because they're still in special ed, so your modified diploma and extended diploma and GED students. It would be after that, it would be students that had less than a 2.5 grade point average and for whatever reason were not eligible for the Pell that would support them. So they could be the same middle class families that you talked about when we talked about why the Oregon Promise was important. They're just not quite there to be able to get that support to go. In a lot of cases, these could be students that are homeless and who are unattached from their families. Their families really are not providing them with the basic support that you would expect, and certainly not stepping up to provide the information to complete the FAFSA that would be necessary. These are some of the kids that we lose really quickly, and they're not necessarily in the foster care system, but their families just are not, for whatever reason, able to be there to support them as they turn 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what percentage of population that are now using the fifth-year plans this new percentage would be? Is it, okay, that'd be 50% of everybody that's using it now, or 25 or 85?
Chair Roble and Senator Hass, we tried to figure out that number. It's very difficult because of the records that districts keep to go back and look at who their students are. You would have to go back and look transcript by transcript and understand very personal information about families. But what I can tell you is in the very first year, next year, we will spend less money on fifth-year programs than we did this year, even if other programs do that. That's because every kid that's currently a fifth-year student that has a 2.5 or greater, they're out. That's the entire Scioto School District. SIO has a 3.0 grade point average participation requirement for their program, so all of those kids are out.